From Miami Law, I'm Annette Uguez, and this is The Explainer.
Any significant impact on welfare spending makes it much more difficult for somebody to leave a violent relationship. It's just that simple. Mm-hmm. You know, we see that when you can't get affordable housing. We see that when you can't get other kinds of aid, and that's certainly the case with SNAP, which has again been sort of the backstop, the fail-safe.
Welcome to Season 15 of the Miami Law Explainer, the legal affairs podcast where University of Miami law experts lend context and historical relevance to today's headlines. Gender violence expert Professor Donna Coker breaks down how proposed cuts to federal food and health programs shift costs to states and disproportionately harm women and victims of domestic violence. Let's go to executive producer Catherine Skip with the interview.
Good morning, Donna.
Good morning.
Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Good. We're in day 34 of the government shutdown as of today. And there's been a great deal of attention on what would happen if Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, much easier to say, were not funded. You've been looking at SNAP and other federal welfare funding cuts in your research. Can you give us some insight into the situation for adequate federal funding to alleviate poverty, SNAP in particular?
Sure. I'm going to focus on SNAP, and then I'll talk maybe a little bit about Medicaid as well. So you probably know that we now have a federal court order that tells the administration that they have to use the emergency set-aside funds to fund SNAP. So if that didn't happen, we were looking at no more SNAP coverage beginning yesterday, I guess, November 1. But what I've been looking at, and again, SNAP is the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. I have to look at my notes.
Right.
People call it food stamps. There are no stamps involved, but that's how people think about it, I think. I've been looking at it in terms of the cuts that are about to hit us in 2026 as a result of the new bill that Congress passed just a little bit ago. The thing to understand about SNAP is that it's really a safety valve. The idea is that the federal government funds the assistance and the state covers the administration. So there could be some other add-ons that the states pay, have a role to pay in, but mostly it's federal dollars. And it's federal dollars that can expand to meet need. So if you are in a recession, if you have a period of high unemployment, SNAP is sort of the fail-safe to make sure that people don't go hungry. Mm-hmm. Right now, we've got about 40 million Americans on an average a month who are getting SNAP benefits, or somebody in the household is. Nearly 90% of those are families with children or elderly people or disabilities. About 92% are families who definitely meet the poverty definition. A very significant percentage are in what we call deep poverty. So SNAP has made a very significant difference in food security. Mm-hmm. There's been a lot of research on that. Women are disproportionately the beneficiaries of SNAP because women in single-family households, it's more likely that you have a female household, a female-headed household. Though, there are plenty of two-parent households who are receiving SNAP. 63% of adult recipients are women. 33% of the non-elderly adult recipients are women of color. 29% of LGBTQ women report that someone in their household is receiving SNAP.
Mm-hmm. Mm. So how did let's just call it the OBA bill change all of this or make changes to these programs?
Right, the OBA-BA. Right. It's the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. Mm-hmm. Right, or you can just call it a Reconciliation Act. Maybe that would be a little bit easier. So the projection now out of the Congressional Budget Office is that the result in the changes in law around SNAP that will take place in 2026 will reduce the overall federal spending on SNAP by $186 billion
Billion with a B.
over the course of several years. And I think it's 9 years. And that will mean about 2.4 million fewer recipients in an average month. 2.4 million in a month period. So SNAP, unlike some other benefits, sort of waxes and wanes with need. It has been a low friction kind of entry. So there's some give in those numbers, but that's the projection. And those cuts are the results really of three things. Number one, and probably the most important and perhaps least well understood by the public, is that it's dramatically shifting the cost to the states. So I said before that the federal government pays and then the state pays to administer. Instead, what's going to happen here is there's going to be a cap and much more in terms of the federal benefits, and then much more of that cost is going to go to the states. So the Congressional Budget Office, in coming up with that savings number, presumes that the cost will be so much that some states will simply discontinue SNAP altogether. You have to appreciate that many states, maybe most, have a balanced budget law. They cannot do deficit spending. According to the Georgetown Center on Law and Inequality Analysis, they looked at all the state budgets and the numbers of people on SNAP, and they found that state budgets would grow. The percentage spent on SNAP would grow anywhere from a 50% increase all the way up to more than a 700% percentage of the budget. I'm saying that of the state budget.
Right.
So it's crazy. On average, states would increase their SNAP spending by 2 or 3 times what they're spending right now. It's simply not tenable. States will not be able to do it.
And can I interrupt now?
Yeah,
question?
of course.
So, which are the top 3 states that will be most impacted? So you're looking at the poorest states, or
you're
hit
also
the hardest?
Well, you're also looking at numbers, right? So states that have larger populations are going to be hit more. California is going to have a significant impact, and honestly, I don't have those other states in front of me. But that's, this is a ratio of the population, so larger states. Right. Florida will be hit. Florida will be significantly hit. Some of the other changes that feed into this, too, are some changes in eligibility. So you've heard a lot of attention about SNAP gives money to illegal aliens or undocumented people. And that's really misleading. SNAP did give money to people who were non-citizens, but who had status, and including refugees, asylees. These are people who had applied and who were in the process. It also gave to violence against women beneficiaries who were immigrants. Those people are being shut out. So it will no longer give to that group. It will continue to give to legal permanent residents and some other non-citizens. But that's where that cut comes in. And it expanded work requirements. There were work requirements already, but it expanded those, and it got rid of some of the exemptions, including for veterans and for youth aging out of foster care. So those are where all of those changes come in. But again, the biggest one, the one that is going to, and that's all of that is going to affect, of course, people in those groups. But the biggest overall impact is this shifting of cost to the states.
You do a lot of research on intimate partner violence. Where's the connection?
Well, the connection is really multiple-fold. Right now, I'm part of a group that's working with my colleague, Carrie Bettinger-Lopez, in the Human Rights Clinic, and we're talking to people all around Miami-Dade County, where we are, to try to understand the impact of various administration policies with regard to violence against women and gender violence more broadly. And people are telling us that they worry a great deal about the SNAP cuts affecting the clients they serve. So, number one, impact and connection with intimate partner violence is that any any significant impact on welfare spending makes it much more difficult for somebody to leave a violent relationship. It's just that simple.
Mm-hmm.
We see that when you can't get affordable housing. We see that when you can't get other kinds of aid, and that's certainly the case with SNAP, which has again been sort of the backstop, the
Mm-hmm.
fail-safe. But in addition to that, we know that financial stress has a direct relationship with increases in intimate partner violence. So Michael Benson and Griff Fox did some research on this quite some time ago, but it's been replicated. Some research finding that rates go twice as high when families are experiencing financial stress. So it contributes in that. But the other thing is that it's not just SNAP. It's not just SNAP. So the DOGE process, of course, earlier took back a lot of money that went to programs that aided victims of crime. Some of those clearly included intimate partner violence victims. It also took back money that went into community violence intervention programs. So you might think that has nothing to do with intimate partner violence, but actually the research has shown a very close relationship. Right. What we're finding is that these community intervention programs where you work with people in the community to prevent and respond before things become violent are dramatically effective, and the money from the DOJ was removed in the DOGE process. It's also, by the way, entirely missing from the president's proposed budget for 2026. So we'll see where that goes. But it's also because the bill that was passed, the resolution bill that was passed, also makes some similar cuts in Medicaid funding. So again, asylees, refugees, those categories of immigrants no longer are eligible for Medicaid. They instituted work requirements for the first time. They're shifting costs to the states, again, creating a real pincher with the states. The cuts are estimated to come to about $698 billion, again with a B, over the course of that period, 2026 to 2034. I'm going to say that again, 2026 to 2034, with reductions in roles of like 10.3 million people, and increases in those without health insurance going up to 7.8. So it's not just SNAP, it's also the Medicaid, it's all of this kind of coming together that increases the risk for people in intimate partner violence situations.
Will any of this swing back starting in 2028 with a change in the political climate?
That is an open question.
But I mean, it all could be like these things.
It could be. So the harms that occur now are not reparable. Obviously, people going without food won't be fixed by having food later.
Right.
But yes, this absolutely could change. We've seen bipartisan support for many years now for the Violence Against Women Act, which does provide funding, some funding to assist victims. That's in addition to the DOGE, those programs that were affected by DOGE. And so one could definitely hope that Congress will come together, that the political climate would change, and that we would not turn to what's really becoming an ever increasing, stingier kind of benefits for people who are in dire economic circumstances.
Well, and we could, with the midterms, there may be a little shifting. Anything in closing?
I think it's really important. So there's a great deal of concern, I think rightly so, about a lot of the actions of this administration and what's happening right now. I don't want us to forget that these funding cuts are very, very important. I think they deserve the kind of attention that I hope to bring to them because they do violence. They do violence to individuals and families.
Another sad episode of the Miami Law Explainer. Thanks so much for coming in.
Happy to be here.
All right, see you around.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Miami Law Explainer. If you enjoy our show, leave us a 5-star review with your podcast provider and ask your friends to subscribe. Our show is engineered and edited by Christopher Alzadi with theme music composed by Rady Kim from the Frost School of Music. I'm your host, Annette Uguez.